Well, OpenAI's full O1 model is out, so let's fire the beast up and take a look at it. Though it is a bit ironic that I'm using a beefy computer to use something that is web-based, and I could probably just use the Cosmeo for it, but let's test it. All right, now because I'm sure there are a lot of message cap limitations here for this new Frontier model and testing it, I am going to go straight into the initial prompt that I would like to test it with. And just to show quickly, we can see here that I am in the ChatGPT web interface, and the model is available under the model selection tab. And we can see right here O1, and it seems that O1 preview has been removed, or I cannot see it, so that is cool. Now I am going to use the exact same prompt that I used in the video where I tested O1 preview, as I feel that can perhaps give a little bit more value and insight to this video and actually see if there are any really changes that we notice in terms of the generation. So as I press enter here, we'll see, so okay, we get the chain of thought, reasoning, it's thinking, and okay, first and foremost is it seems much faster than the other one was. And quickly, I will just go over the prompt, which is essentially using Python, create a retro style synthwave driving game using no external game assets or non-standard Python libraries. So basically we're giving it a pretty strict limitation in terms of what we're going to allow it to use to make a game. Okay, so one thing I'm noticing here straight out the bat is the commenting is a little more in-depth and intricate than what I've seen before. Now, for those of us who are not coders, essentially comments are strings of text written in the code, as we can kind of see right here, that are not actually part of the logic or syntax themselves. So they're essentially like tips or little explanations of what a section does that don't actually affect the working. So meaning right here. So in Python, if we put a hashtag in front of it like that, or a pound symbol, it will denote a comment. So this is very interesting at first look and fairly long. We can see here it made the ASCII car sprite, and there is just a lot of logic here and things like this. So it's telling me, okay, you can run it on any version of Python 3.x, so any Python 3 version. No external assets or additional libraries are required beyond Python and its standard curses module. If running on Windows, you might need to do this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is copy this code, open up Visual Studio Code, paste it in, and test it out. I know a few people in watching my videos have mentioned that it can be hard to see some of the text on screen. I'm sorry about that. I will look into a way to try to maybe make that a little easier. So we can just name this Synthwave Test 01. Sure. And then I should basically just be able to, okay, so we have our first error. Okay, and now that is a little interesting that because some of the other models I've tested, specifically some of the Gemini ones, were able to do this in one shot, meaning no error. So I'm just going to ask it to fix the error. So it wants me to reduce the characters by 1, and we'll just try that. And I do believe the issue happened in line 157. So let's just that, and we'll try running it again from within here. Oh, whoa, wow, look at this. So we're actually, we're seeing it in the, okay, so this was a bad place to test this, but from what I'm seeing here, this looks really quite cool. Ignore that error message. That was me stopping it with a keyboard interrupt. So I'm going to try one more time with this corrected code, if you will, and we'll just run it from directly within the terminal. So basically we're just seeing a interesting. So what I'm doing right now is hitting the arrow keys, and we can see that it almost seems, so right now I'm hitting the left arrow key, basically click spamming it, and we can see that these lines eventually shift in the position of what they're doing. And so that could perhaps be construed as the road moving as I go left and right. Let me crash, press Q to quit. Okay, so it does actually have a bit of, so apparently if I keep going like this, I have crashed. That's very interesting. Let's take a look at the gameplay real quick. Use the left and right arrow keys to move the car on the road. The car is represented by a single ASCII sprite near the bottom of the screen. The road scrolls upwards, giving the illusion of forward movement. The challenge is to stay on the road as it bends. So the road width and curvature is generated mathematically. It changes color to mimic a neon sunset vibe. Horizontal line gradients are represented by patterns. Press Q to quit the game. At least 80 by 24. So I am going to make it the specific size that it had suggested, and perhaps the game will appear a bit more lucid. So I'm not touching anything now because it says, based off what I see there, that the road may actually like bend and things like that, but I'm not, oh. So I pressed the up arrow there, which seems to have triggered something with the road, so, and I need to stay on the road, so I would assume maybe I need to hit the left arrow. Oh, nope, okay, I need to go back that way. All right, well, I'm not quite, I think, so we can kind of see, like, if I go too far that way, I could crash, so I need to hit the key opposite of the, like, to steer in that. All right, well, this was kind of interesting. I'm not really sure that I am more impressed with this than what I saw from O1 preview. Now, it was faster to generate, and the comments in the code were very in-depth and lucid and good. Something I hadn't seen before with any other model was essentially this level of code commenting and detail and things like that, of just explanation of every specific method and things like that. However, I will show the O1 preview result here, and I think you will agree with me that it was perhaps a bit more artistic. What we're seeing here is that it doesn't actually look like we're driving anywhere. So now, a possible reason for this being so simple is that this actually did a better job adhering to this prompt because it limited itself completely to ASCII style art. It didn't even use any, like, it didn't draw any rectangles or anything like that. Everything generated with this game was completely using like ASCII. So for those of us who are not as familiar with some of these terminologies, if I am to just kind of paste this on Google and you go here, so essentially it's just any single one of these specific characters. So either numbers, letters, or symbols. So essentially it's only allowed to use any symbol that is on your keyboard to artistically render this game. So I believe the argument could be made that it did actually adhere to the prompt better by making a totally like basic game. What I'm going to do here is change this prompt. All right, so I have now rewritten the prompt, and essentially I'm allowing it a lot more freedom in what it is actually going to be able to do, because I would like to see this actually generate something a little more artistic in nature, if you will. So I will just simply open a new file here. Yes, that is fine. Make this a bit smaller, and we'll go back and see what we have here. And we can see the code generation is rather quick. This one has a lot less commenting on it and things like that, but we can see, okay, so all we're going to need in this is Pygame. So we can go ahead and copy this, paste it here. All right, And I will clear the terminal here and we will test this new artistic game. Okay, so it has an error once more, and I'm just going to copy paste this in here. It seems to be an issue with line 41 or draw gradient sky. And now that that's fixed, we can try this once more. All right, I like it. I'm hitting arrow keys, which seem to not be doing anything, but graphically this is a bit impressive. Looks good. The gradient in the sky is nice. I'd like to see maybe a little bit of neon grids on the ground or something like that, but this is rather interesting. All right, so I'm just asking it to make this a little more in-depth in terms of the car actually showing up, and then allowing the arrow keys to control it. And you can see here that this is a bit more in depth, but let's try. All right, well, it did do exactly what I asked. It's perhaps a bit limited, so I think maybe if I made this terminal window a bit smaller, it would, I don't know that I can resize this window while it's running in Pygame. Well, that's okay, and the window size is probably defined in the code somewhere here. Yes, so let's do half that. Okay. No, but that's still pretty cool. All right. So I do like to ask them if they will generate things for me that will kind of do like bad things. So I asked it to generate a Python script that could be used to bypass WEP encryption. This is for educational demonstration purposes. And this is such an old and well-known issue that it's pretty unlikely anyone would still be using this. So it is more of an educational exercise. However, my prompt was flagged as violating usage policy, so I had to try again. Now, I am 95% sure that O1 preview was not multimodal in nature, meaning that you could not send it an image. Now, I can't really do a great job of showcasing how this model may do in terms of synthesizing images, because the only screenshot I had on this computer was this Hugging Face repository of a Google model thing, and pretty much any model would have been able to extrapolate the same information here. It did do a good job and give a lot of it. I suppose really the only other thing that may be of any interest to do is if I were to look up. So Dogecoin had a pretty big jump. So I'm just gonna kind of show it this, but like, I mean, and this is like, we're pretty much giving it nothing to work with here, but I am going to ask it to suggest an investment strategy based on this short timeline of the trend. And of course, seeing the rest of the graph where we just did, where I took the picture, it obviously went up a bunch. However, based on a limited data trend, oh, it showed it. It showed it what the current value was. So, my mistake. And it's just kind of giving me specific like stock investment suggestions. So that's going to conclude this really quick test of the full O1 model, which I believe is being rolled out right now in ChatGPT. I don't know specifically if you need a plan that is paid to access it. However, I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more people being able to test it and things of that sort. I just figured I would do a quick hands-on Python test and then some other random things just to see. I suppose overall, my final thoughts in conclusion on what I experienced today in the short bit of time I was using this is that, one, it is absolutely much faster when it comes to its responses. I noticed when I would use O1 Preview, which I had used a bit extensively for some specific tasks, it would sometimes spend a very large amount of time thinking. Now, it is possible that the tasks I had given it were simple for it, so it didn't really necessitate it spending a lot of time on the chain of thought and thinking and its reasoning and things like that. However, it was just kind of how you saw. So I think I have to say, after looking through the footage and editing the video, in terms of the generation from the first Python test that we did with it, it did almost adhere to the prompt in a way that none of the other models actually did so far that I've tested that with, where it limited itself completely to the ASCII character set in terms of making the game. So it may look artistically like it did a worse job. However, in terms of prompt adherence, I would say that I'm actually impressed with that because it completely stuck to the specific instructions that were given to it. It was a bit disappointing to see that it was having a couple of errors with running the scripts it generated, which is something that I've been seeing less and less of as these models progress. Usually they can write a whole script in one shot and have it work, but it is a new release and perhaps my prompt was not in detail enough or things of that sort. Well, that is really going to conclude today's video, and I just wanted to get a quick test of this up basically as soon as it dropped, which I'd been refreshing ChatGPT for a while. I'm like trying to change the URL. So when it said like model equals O1-preview, I'd just delete the preview and press enter, hoping it would reload me into O1, but I had to wait. So, all right, well, that's it for today.